Hey everybody, Phil Easi here. I'm super excited. I'm back in the garden today. It's been a few days. I've had a couple nights of snow. We've added about 1.5 feet here. Might be kind of cool as the season goes along. Different things will start to disappear as the snow keeps going up. But today I'm back at doing a garden side chat. Today's chat's going to be more on the theme of planning, because that's what you can do this time of year. It's kind of fun. Keep your mind stimulated, keep you engaged in something, and just something to look forward to. When it comes to garden planning, seed spacing or plant spacing is something you kind of want to think about sooner than later. You don't want to throw your seeds in and just kind of see what happens, hope for the best, because you can create a lot of challenges for yourself and a lot of extra work. And part of gardening should be that it's fun and enjoyable and not necessarily just a chore. Unless you like it for the chore aspect, then that's good too. Thanks for checking me out again. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and as always, please smash that thumbs up. Turn that thumb from white to blue. That means the video will get shown to more and more people. More and more people can access this information. So I like to often break things down into the why, what, when, where, hows, those sorts of questions. The why question, why would you want to think about planning the spacing of some of your crops? Well, there's a couple reasons why. It's going to help with the overall productivity of your garden. If you don't think about the spacing at all, you're going to end up planting things that are too big, that will overgrow smaller growing things. They'll interfere with each other's growth. It may block sun, it may rob nutrients, may take all sorts of things can happen. So there's a big consequence to not thinking about the spacing and how far apart you want your plants to end up growing. And it's important not just to think about when they're small how far apart they are, but you have to think about the end when they grow to their mature size, and have you left enough space for that? Because if you go just by looking, quite often you'll end up planting things a lot closer than you should, and then they crowd each other out and you don't get the same amount of production, and it's just not as efficient. The other reason to think about your spacing is it'll help with decreasing the amount of weeds if you properly space your plants. Where weeds grow tend to be in the places that are still exposed to the sun, air, water, and all that stuff. So you'll notice that if you have a really healthy lawn, let's say for example, you won't have as much of the weeds competing with the grass because the grass is strong and healthy. Similar idea with the garden, but even more so, because what we've done is we've taken off the top layer, quite often with gardening, of the soil or of the earth, and that exposes the soil to all of the different seeds and weeds and things that can then grow, and it gives them space to do that. So if we have the proper spacing of our plants, that ends up creating a canopy over top and strong healthy plants, which both will end up out competing your weeds, and there'll be less overall weeds to deal with. You can also decrease the amount of overall water that you're using, because again, when you think about plants that are properly spaced and they're growing, they're going to create a canopy, and your plants typically need the most water as they get bigger. The larger the plant, the more water they tend to need. So they're going to get bigger, they're going to start filling in the garden. If you look at a really healthy garden in full grow, what you'll see is a lot of green and not a lot of brown in terms of earth versus vegetative plant. And when you have more green canopy, you don't have as much water evaporating from the soil. You don't have as much of that moisture escaping. So you then don't need to water as much as you would if the plants were not properly spaced out and you have a lot of soil exposed to the sun and wind, which will dry it out faster. The last thing, you can just simply grow more food in less space. So not everybody has large spaces to grow their food. So these concepts are really important for any of us that have limited space for our gardens, or even if we have to grow in containers or we want to grow in containers, then the proper spacing and maximizing the spacing will become really important. How do you go about getting the proper spacing for your plants? The first thing to consider is going to be the type of beds or rows that you're planting in. A lot of farms, larger farms, will use the single row, single crop concept, where each row is going to be its own crop within your garden. The other technique that I prefer is going to be with wide beds. Those beds 3 to 4 feet, and that distance, I don't tend to go more than 4 feet because I want to be able to reach in from either side of the bed and reach fairly easily to the center of the bed for weeding and just maintenance and dealing with stuff. For me, the wider bed is what I tend to go with, and then within the bed itself I'll have my rows of the plants. So if you want to think about carrots, let's say, instead of having a row of carrots, a walkway, another row of carrots, a walkway, another row of carrots, we're going to have a walkway on the outside and then 3 to 4 foot space across, and we're going to have several rows of carrots within that, and then the walkway on the other side. This is allowing us to fit a lot more plants into the space and still maintaining the proper distance between plants to allow them to reach maturity and full potential. I would strongly recommend you consider doing wide beds versus rows in your planting and when you're thinking about just your garden in general. When we think about the bed itself and we think about doing rows of plants within the bed, the other thing to consider is whether or not the food or the crop you're growing is one that you want to grow vertically or you do grow vertically. If you're growing vertically, you can decrease the amount of space that you put between your plants. A perfect example for me is going to be with cucumbers. With my cucumbers, if I grow them, I did tests where I'd grow them out in the garden and they'd go over, flop and spread out and take more space. And then, as you've seen in some of my videos, I'll do them in the greenhouse and I'll grow them vertically up ropes. I'm going to switch that into trellis this year because the rope snapped, but the idea is still the same. I was able to plant those cucumbers at 8-inch spacing versus 12-inch spacing, which is what I was needing to do within the garden to give them more space to spread out. So you can really maximize the number of plants you can fit into the smaller space if you're growing vertically. Some of the plants to consider to grow vertically are going to be, of course, things like peas, tomatoes, vining cucumbers, beans, pole beans, not bush beans, your squashes and your melons can also be grown vertically, but you'll have to support the fruit itself, especially as it gets bigger and matures more. They'll just snap off under the weight if you don't do that. Another thing with spacing that you can consider is interspacing different varieties. So within that bed, you may want to consider growing a couple different kinds of plants. And some of the plants, one part of the plant you'll want will likely be one that grows taller and spreads out, and the other one won't need the height to grow, and it won't need as much sunlight to grow in. A good example that I use all the time every year is going to be my rows of peas. When I grow my peas vertically, at the base of the peas I plant lettuce every time. And what I'm doing there is I'm maximizing the amount of space that I can grow my food within. I've thought about that spacing, but it also has an added benefit with the lettuce sheltering or creating shade for the roots of the peas. And peas tend to be a crop that like a little bit of the cooler weather. So I believe I'm extending my season slightly by having nice lettuce heads growing at the base of the rows of peas. You're thinking about, do I have a vegetable that grows well in a canopy? And do I have a vegetable that grows well on the ground? And in terms of their space needs, can I put them together? Do I want to put them together? Always the same questions. Consider the size of the plant that you're getting. There are different sizes of similar varieties. I can find a pumpkin. That's the one that came to my brain just now. Pumpkin's a perfect example. Think about the different sizes. You can have miniature pumpkins. You can have those massive pumpkins. You can have everything in between. When you're growing, and if you are worried about space, or space is something you're trying to maximize and you want to be efficient with, then I would consider growing smaller variety of that crop. There's certain types of pepper plants that will need a lot of space to do their thing. Same with tomatoes. And there's others that don't need as much space. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for checking me out. Hopefully you made it to the end here. If you did, thank you. Appreciate that. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, notification bell, smash the thumbs up, smash the thumbs up, whatever you need to do, whatever I need to do to get you to smash that thumbs up. Video gets shown to more and more people. We will see you guys real soon. I'm super enjoying this, and I'm going to be back at it again and again and again. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.